So like I mentioned, day 14, a lot happened. Like a lot happened. And then it was happening simultaneously also. So it's going back, but it couldn't do simultaneous stories. Even though the fights can happen simultaneously, I can't do the simultaneous stories. Okay. So this was day 13 evening, but this is more a point of philosophy, which actually I wanted to cover in last week's class, but I didn't quite get around to it. So, Jayadratha, who's now this main focus in today's battle, he had he had, how do you say it? He had come on to Draupadi. He had tried to, he was inappropriate with his behavior to Draupadi, but rather forcefully, right? So it's not even just, I like you. It was a bit more aggressive, more demanding, more like she's not having a choice in the matter. Firstly, she's married. Secondly, firstly, she wasn't interested. So he has no right to impose. You can desire, but if it's not mutual, then it's just not acceptable. So Bhim got really upset, and Bhim would have killed him on the spot, as per what actually happened. Yudhishthira said he's Dushala's husband. Dushala is their sister. You can't make our sister a widow. You have to remember in those days also very different era where the support of having the fatherly figure or husbandly figure is definitely creates a different lifestyle for the person. But even if you don't think about it from that point of view and just companionship, and Dushala is our sister, how can we do that to her? And so Jayadratha was let loose, forgiven, so to say, like reprimanded, insulted, not just reprimanded, and then and Draupadi was protected completely. She in this event, Draupadi was definitely 100% given respect, and there was no fault on how the Pandavas looked after her in this respect. And so Arjuna is thinking, should we have just killed him? Like, here's Yudhishthira's compassion that Dushala is our sister. Everyone makes mistakes, so we don't kill them. And then Jayadratha is the reason that Abhimanyu died. And so would it have just been better to kill him? And so this is now, it comes up a lot. Now that we're towards the tail end of the Mahabharata, because you really see how the domino effects work, right? This happened, this happened, this happened, and now this. And just the war coming to have fusion and manifesting also, you say. Sometimes, like, would it just have been better that Draupadi was insulted and Bhim and Arjuna killed Duryodhana there and then? Jayadratha misbehaved and was killed there and then, as per Kshatriya Dharma allowed. And then, how do we know if that really would have been better? Of course, him having lost Abhimanyu that day, he's thinking it would have been better to have killed Jayadratha when he had done that. We spared him, and now look at the consequence. And I know this line of thinking comes up even when capital punishment arguments go on, right? That they're criminals, they've been caught, and maybe not just one off, maybe they've done a few crimes, and so even if one was badly judged or some mistake was made, they've done a few, and so now they deserve capital punishment. And then, of course, the lobbies, most countries don't have. Most countries don't have, because how are we to decide what punishment is there? And so this is that whole topic of dharma. This is why Mahabharata is called Dharma Shastra. How do we know? And so, of course, Arjuna is thinking, we should have just killed him. But had Arjuna killed, or sorry, at that point it would have been Bhim, had Bhim killed Jayadratha all those years back, who's to say something else wouldn't have happened in the war and Abhimanyu would have been killed anyways in the war? And so then we go back to this whole free will and destiny argument. Was Abhimanyu destined to die? And was Jayadratha destined to? And so from a completely Vedantic point of view, it's like actions have consequences. Jayadratha's actions had consequences. His misbehaving to Draupadi had the consequences of what he's going to face today. Well, what he faces today. And then his tapas that he did for Lord Shiva had the consequences of. And then was that really a boon that Shiva gave him? Because today he is petrified. Like this whole day, he is so petrified. Because every time Arjuna breaks one of the viewers, and every time Arjuna kills one of the heroes, Arjuna kills like a good number of heroes. There's so many kings that Arjuna has killed who are Mahabharatis on day 13. And every time he kills one of them, there's this victory war cry. So they have different war cries, and one of them is a victorious war cry. And so Jayadratha, even though he's hidden, so the viewer that Jayadratha is hidden in is a very complicated viewer, and they have an invisibility shield. This is too cool, man. This is sounding like way better than Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings at this point, right? Because the viewer has an invisibility shield. So Jayadratha can't be seen by anyone. Like, how well have they hidden him? He's invisible. That's how well they've hidden him. But he can hear. He might be invisible behind the shield, but he can hear everything that's happening in the battlefield. And so he hears every time Arjuna does his victory cry. And he can also hear every time he does it, he's closer. And so when I was reading today, I was like, how did Yudhishthira not hear Arjuna? He's crying. So like, there's this, yay, I killed this one. Now, yay, I'll kill this one. Is it the Gandhiva is really overworked on day 14 of the war? Yeah, like seriously. But like I said, Yudhishthira might be far away and his own fears working on him. And then it was actually at one point, it was something like 2 PM, to be fair to Yudhishthira, when he does get a bit nervous. And it was at a point where Arjuna was simultaneously fighting 6,000 soldiers. 6,000 at one point in time. He was fighting. And so Yudhishthira got a little nervous about it. Okay, so coming back to how do we know what's the right thing to do? Because Dharma Shastra. So actually we don't. Right? But as per Kshatriya Dharma, if you kill, be ready to face the consequences. If you spare, be ready to face the consequences. So basically what Dharma Shastra is saying is that there's going to be times when it's ambiguous what is going to be the best outcome. And since we can't really tell to the best of our knowledge, we do, or to the best of our intention, we do, because Yudhishthira's intention was beautiful, right? Like spare a person's life, but also spare the wife and the family that would have had to go through his missing him, or not having him there to support. And Yudhishthira was also intelligent enough to know that killing Jayadratha would have just aggravated their relationship with Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra. And at that point, the war hadn't come. And you're trying to get peace at this point. So the intention is to forgive and to look for harmony and to look for a way to live together. So the best of intentions. But we can have the best of intentions, and then when outcome comes, the outcome is still difficult to face. And so one of the most beautiful things about this Mahabharata is that you see when the Pandavas are facing the outcome, sure, they're having the whole range of emotions, but they accept the outcome, and then there's a certain amount of dignity and grace, and then there's the ability to move forward. So now, Abhimanyu dying is huge, but already next day, Arjuna has moved forward, and they continuing to fight the war and do what they have to do. Whereas you'll see that on the Kaurava side, they're not as able to accept consequence. Like, so the very fact that this war is happening is a consequence of Shakuni rolling that dice and cheating. That Arjuna, Duryodhana set up that game of dice to cheat. And then, today that happens. Today that whole conversation happens. And he doesn't accept that this is a consequence of his actions. So when a lot of times, and even Karna, although Karna is a little better than Duryodhana at accepting consequences of action, there's that sense of almost that lack of responsibility that we need to take. I did the action, this is the reaction. Now, when I say I did the action, this is the reaction, doesn't mean I don't have sadness. So when Abhimanyu dies, there's so much sadness. But there is acceptance of, we let Jayadratha go. And there's anger that Jayadratha has done this, and then there's moving forward. So there isn't that sense of victim. Whereas with Duryodhana, he played the game of dice, he cheated, the war is happening, and it's poor me, I am suffering. Now, of course, when you lose a child, like Arjuna has lost Abhimanyu, you're going to feel poor me. And so emotions come and emotions go, but there's the sense of responsibility. Actions have consequences. This is the consequence. This is what I have to face. Versus, this is so unfair. And so when we talk about dharma mindset, this understanding of right now, whatever is happening, this is what I have to face. And so how am I going to face this now? And very important, with the intention to move forward and not get stuck in this thought of this happened to me or this is happening to me. So when we talk about Mahabharata being Dharma Shastra, not necessarily it's going to say do A or do B, because actually both are correct, both have its advantages. It's decide as best as you can, and then be ready to face consequences. So, okay. Now, Arjuna is fighting, and there's a few small stories that we will cover before we get to this big reveal. Arjuna fights Dashashin and is victorious completely, and there's this back and forth, but like he could have killed Dashashin there and then, but that was Bhim's vow. So on this day, from now onwards, you can see that literally there's times when Arjuna could have killed so many people, but that was somebody else's vow, so I leave it. Then even there, it's like, if it's a battle and you have the opportunity, just do it. Because the longer they live, the more they're going to cause havoc. Dashashin's a decent fighter, so he defeats Duryodhana easily. So when we pair, Duryodhana is not a bad fighter. I mean, we have to remember that compared to all of us, these guys are like amazing. And when we're talking between Arjuna and Duryodhana. And so we'll say, of course, Arjuna won easily, but Duryodhana was very good in his own right? He could stand his side. But Duryodhana has this tendency of running away. Like in far more than anyone else, you see that it's Duryodhana who has run away. And then it could be because he preferred mace to bow and arrow. But lots of them fight with mace today. There's some very serious fighting going on. Arjuna faces Karna and defeats him. So now there's already been 2 or 3 occasions already in these last 2 days where since Bhishma Pitama fell and Karna is on the battlefield, Arjuna has actually defeated Karna. So this is not even any of the boons coming into effect. This is no adharma. This is no nothing. This is just a fight, and Arjuna has won. And I feel incredible need to say that, because every time people say it was, Arjuna wouldn't have won if it wasn't for all the boons working against Karna. But that's not true, because there's been many incidences where Arjuna has won. Okay, so there's this particular fight that I wanted to mention, which is a person called Kshatrayush. The names don't roll off the tongue as easily as you'd like them to. But Kshatrayush was a king and had a whole lot of boons and had access to a lot of different types of weapons. And he had one weapon that was given to him by Varuna Devata. And so it was very, very powerful, because Varuna Devata, Lord of the ocean, of course, powerful Devata, his weapon's going to be powerful. And so he's fighting Arjuna. Kshatrayush is fighting Arjuna. Krishna is the chariot driver. But in this whole fighting, Kshatrayush takes this mace and clobbers Krishna. I know, right? Like Krishna is just the chariot driver. But maybe the ferocity of the war, or the whole of the so interesting thing happens when this happens. So while the fight is going on, he was given this boon to have the mace, but there was a condition. If you ever strike somebody who is not fighting, you'll lose all your power, and the intensity with which you hit will deflect back to you. So he's hit Krishna the first time, and maybe it was a mistake and the boon didn't take quite effect. So with all his might, he hits again the second time. And this time the mace doesn't hit Krishna, and it hits him, and he falls down dead. And so the first time it's hit Krishna. The mace has hit Krishna. And it says that Krishna didn't even flinch. But just stood there like a mountain, like water hitting against a mountain. Literally is the description given. Krishna being the mountain and Varuna Devata's weapon being the water, and it's just like nothing. Like he didn't even flinch. It was zero. But Arjuna was so angry. Like, why did he hit Krishna? And so, but to Krishna, nothing. It was like zero, nothing. He doesn't flinch, like doesn't even blink his eye. He doesn't, not one hair out of place. And just keeps going. But he had to bear the onslaught that was coming towards Arjuna. And so many times in this day particularly, it's happened previously too, but on day 14, you see it far more, because like I said, it was Arjuna and Krishna versus the entire Kaurava army. They throw these arrows that they throw. It would have been some feat to be able to see it, because it becomes like 1,000 arrows. One arrow becomes 1,000 arrows, and it's suddenly raining arrows. And it's aimed at Arjuna, but Krishna got pierced by many of those arrows. There was armor, and they all knew how to block it and all things like that. Arjuna got pierced plenty by the arrows, but Krishna was getting pierced by the arrows. So then there's this guy. So this, what was his name? Kshatrayush. He dies because his weapon kills him instead, because he hits, and this is the other thing about dharma, right? Like you don't hit someone who's not fighting. And yet the Kaurava side wasn't just Duryodhana and Dushashan. It was these people, like people we don't even know who existed. And they were doing that. Like, why are you hitting the chariot driver who's not even armed and who's not even fighting? And so the idea of adharma and they not living up to the spirit. And the weapon is the clear condition of it was this. So anyway, his brother now comes along and then they hitting what's his name now? I didn't write down his name. His brother comes and wants to avenge Kshatrayush. And so he does a similar thing. He shoots arrows at Krishna. And so once again, Arjuna is furious and shoots so many arrows and shoots him, kills him on the spot. But when I was reading this, it was really like, last week we really saw how much Krishna does to protect his devotees. And today's, it was really evident of how much he bears or endures. Like that the full onslaught that is coming to Arjuna, Krishna is facing first. Because as the charioteer, he's standing in front. And even though he's vowed not to fight, he's getting hit, he's getting shot. It's like full. There's the sense of we feel, sometimes we feel he's not even there in our lives. He doesn't know we exist and he doesn't even know what's happening. And then you read this and it's like, how much he's there. And how much he's sharing the pain and the suffering and the challenges and the difficulties and how much he's enduring with us. And so I remember in Bal Vihar, we tell the kids that Krishna's in everyone's heart. And so, if you hit another kid, then Krishna in their heart will feel pain. So don't hit them. And it's such a sweet, innocent way of saying it, but maybe that's exactly it, right? Maybe that divine presence in us is already everything that we bearing, everything that we are suffering, everything that we are enduring, everything that we find challenging is right. He's right here in us, going through it all with us, and taking so much of it. Sure, Arjuna is being shot at as well, and sure, Arjuna is being hit as well, but Krishna need not have been. And yet he was. And so this is one of how much he endures and how much he takes. And then there's so many incidences where, so there's this other person called Sudakshina, and he's also, all these people are Maharathis. Maharathis means they're incredibly skilled fighters. So he's also charging towards Arjuna. Everyone's charging towards Arjuna because it was whole get Arjuna day. That was it. The whole of day 14 is let's make sure we destroy Arjuna today. That was everyone's focus. So literally every king is targeting Arjuna. So this Sudakshina comes and and like I said, Arjuna is fighting so many kings, one after the other, and so much is going on. So this arrow, and he's been hit. He's already been hit quite a few times. Krishna's been hit quite a few times, but they bounce back. So Arjuna is hit, and he literally he's within the chariot. He's fallen. So Krishna's so alert. Like all these arrows are coming to him as well, But he's so alert, and Arjuna is behind him. That Arjuna's fallen and he can't counterattack. Krishna turns the chariot so that now the arrows that are coming don't hit him. And so it takes about a minute or two for Arjuna to get back his orientation, and he's ready to fight. And then Krishna will turn the chariot back again, and Arjuna shoots, and he killed Sudakshina. But if Krishna hadn't turned that chariot, so Dakshina had shot. Arjuna was wounded. He had to shoot again. Arjuna's dead. And so his maneuvering of the chariot saved Arjuna's life innumerable number of times. Like, this is just one incident I'm narrating to you, but it was happening all day. And it's been happening for the last 13 days. So it's not given in as much detail. Some of it is, but I'm not going into some of those details. But so how much he took, and then while taking, how much he did to constantly protect Arjuna, constantly guide Arjuna, encourage Arjuna, give Arjuna what Arjuna needed at that moment was given to him moment to moment to moment. Considering he's just been clubbed with the mace, he's just been shot, he's still doing, like, with full alertness what is needed in that moment. And so at this point, Arjuna has killed 6,000 soldiers in 1 hour. And this is, I think this is that moment where Yudhishthira thinks, where is my Arjuna? I can't hear him, what's going on? There's so many soldiers there, it's all too horrendous. And this is that moment where Yudhishthira sends Satyaki into the battlefield. So, and that's mind-blowing that he killed 6,000 people in 1 hour. At this point, Duryodhana starts begging Dronacharya, you have to do something. If I knew this was going to happen, I would have let Jayadratha go home like he wanted to go home. And this, please, only you can help. You the only one that we rely on. And then he changes tune, and it's really, this is also very interesting how he swaps. It's really like Mr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde. Dr. Hyde, Mr. Jekyll here. It's like this flip in his personality. So here's this, please help me, you're my guru, you're the most amazing, and we can't do without you. And then he turns around, it's my bad fate that I ended up with you only because you favor Arjuna and you don't favor us. And that's why Arjuna can do all this, because you're not doing anything, because you like him and you're letting him get away with it. And what is my bad, what horrible luck do I have that I don't have people who stand by me? This is one Arjuna and Krishna versus their whole army, and this is what Duryodhana is saying. And every king, every soldier is fighting with such tenacity and ferociousness, and because they just all so determined. Considering how many times the chariot has been hit and all the rest of it, it's definitely Duryodhana had no right to say that, but that's what he done. And then, at this point, Duryodhana, so two things happen. Dronacharya says, if I move from here, Jayadratha is vulnerable, so I can't move from here. You're telling me to go and fight him, but he's already made it amply clear that he's not going to fight me today. He's dodged me already on 3 occasions. Like, he just goes around. He's not going to fight me today. So you go fight. Like, you're complaining so much, you go fight. It's like, shabash, Drona. Finally being the guru you meant to be. Stop whining here and you go fight. Do you know what Duryodhana answers? I don't stand a chance against Arjuna. Why are you sending me? I said, why do you whine and complain so much? And he knows also. Like, actually, anyone who has eyes today can see that nobody stood a chance against Arjuna today. Like, literally nobody stood a chance against Arjuna. And single-handedly, he's just going through one after the other. And then Drona says, okay. I know you're scared, so I will give you a shield of armor that is impenetrable. So take off everything, and I will chant the mantras and put them back onto you. So everything is, nobody will be able to hurt you. So he knew the mantras of how to do that. And so did Abhimanyu. Remember, Abhimanyu's armor was impenetrable, but they shot it off. They shot off the strings that were tying his armor. So now Duryodhana has this incredible sense of pride. Nobody can hurt me. And so who does he go to? Arjuna. And he talks that 2 minutes ago. How can you send me in front of Arjuna? I'm no match for him. Now standing in the front of Arjuna is like so insulting. You call yourself a Kshatriya. Anyone can beat you. You think you're going to. Like, it's really it's such an interest. Our mind, we more than Arjuna, we'd love to be Arjunas, but more than him, our mind is like Duryodhana. Our minds do these flips. Like 1 minute we're so confident, and 1 minute we're so this, and then next minute we're so scared and we're so insecure. And then 1 minute we're speaking also beautiful virtues, and the next minute we just, giving into desire. And in Duryodhana's mind, it's literally, you see this, that flickering of that, that the flame is just not steady. It's just constantly flickering and waving. And so he goes in front of, and this is a fun bit of the story. I don't know if I told you last week. So he goes in, and so Arjuna shoots a few arrows, and Arjuna thinks something's wrong here. Because usually Arjuna's arrows are incredible. And they bouncing off Duryodhana. And Krishna also says, no, definitely something wrong. How can your arrow not have penetrated? So then Arjuna said, oh, Drona's put this armor on him. So Arjuna knows how to disarm this armor. He's about to disarm the armor when Ashwatthama, Drona's son, shoots the string out of Arjuna's bow, which again, against the battlefield, rules of battle. And so he notes this. Arjuna notes this and thinks, okay, fine, let him keep his armor. So Krishna looks at Arjuna and says, you're going to let him keep the armor? He says, yeah. He restrings his bow and he shoots. Now this armor protects everywhere except your hands, because we don't have armor on our hands, right? Well, they don't have. I don't have armor. Because when you're fighting, you need to be able to move the hands and the flexibility. So the armor is protecting all of Duryodhana except his hands. So what does Arjuna do? He shoots arrows on only Duryodhana's hands. Only his hands. And he's shot the arrows here. Like, how good is his aim? Just underneath the nail. And he's shot the nail off Duryodhana's fingers. If you want to keep your armor on, fine. All this in the midst of so much else going on at the same time. He still defeats Duryodhana. And now again, this Duryodhana who was standing there insulting Arjuna, saying you're not really worthy of fighting, and then do you really think you can win this day? Now goes running off the battlefield yet again. And he goes straight, of course, back to Drona. And the conversation is, do something. And Drona finally says to him, how many times do I have to tell you? Nobody can defeat Arjuna. Nobody. Because Krishna is in front of him. It's not even nobody can defeat Arjuna. Because Krishna is standing in front of him. You just don't. And suddenly, Duryodhana can see it. Maybe because his nails really hurt. I don't know why. Suddenly now, Duryodhana starts crying, saying, this is all my fault for playing that game of dice. So many people are dying, and it's all my fault. And so this is why I'm saying this mind of Duryodhana's is so incredibly fickle. It switches so quickly. Okay, so now we get to when they fighting. When Arjuna and Duryodhana were fighting, there's so much conversation. I'm not going to go into the whole import of the conversation, but twice today this will happen. Once when Arjuna is fighting Duryodhana, and when Bhim is fighting Karna. I mentioned Bhim and Karna fight, right? both times. So Arjuna tells Duryodhana, today I will be able to appease what I wanted to do at the game of dice. Today you will suffer for what you did then. And then again, this is the consequences of actions, this karma coming back. When karma comes back, our ability to face it. Bhim faced Karna, and I had mentioned last week, Karna really wanted to like bond with his brothers, but he chose a really bad occasion to be able to bond with his brothers, especially since he sided Duryodhana. And so you see this Maha conflict in Karna as well. Like he has so much love for Bhim, but so much loyalty to Duryodhana. And so Karna had no strength because he's so divided. He had total adherence and knowledge of what dharma is, and he went completely against it. And so that inner strength can't be there because he's in so much conflict. So much conflict he is in. He desperately wants not to hurt the Pandavas. He desperately wants to make Duryodhana happy and defeat the Pandavas. He simultaneously has both desires. And the worst thing about having such, how can you be happy? Because even if you get one of them, you desire the other one, and so you can't be happy. And so Duryodhana is one miserable dude, but Karna is far more miserable. And Duryodhana is like so miserable because he's so fickle. Like he's not able to hold even one thought. And his mind flips so easily. And so constant avalanche of, this sorrow, fear, anger, betrayal, guilt. He just keeps, going round and round in those. And Karna just sorrow no matter what happens. He's with his brothers, sorrow. Not with his brothers, sorrow. Supports Duryodhana, sorrow. Doesn't support Duryodhana, sorrow. Painful, no? So painful. And so Arjuna also tells Duryodhana, every vow we took, we will fulfill. Have no doubt. How can you still doubt? And Bhim tells the same thing to Karna. And Karna knows. Karna actually knows. Duryodhana is starting to see, because 30 of his brothers have already been killed by Bhim on that day itself. He's seeing that the vows are being fulfilled. And so he can see so clearly at one point, and then he goes into denial. And Karna does the same thing. Karna also, like I would say 80% of him knows for sure that there's no way any of them are going to survive this war. And then yet, part of Karna still believes he can kill Arjuna. He knows Krishna is God, he adores Krishna, he respects Krishna, he worships Krishna, and he still thinks he's going to be able to. He thinks he has a chance. So I'm not sure why Karna has this delusion. Maybe even though we can be so learned, we can be so adhering to dharma, maybe just that one attachment causes enough delusion in our minds. Because actually Karna it makes no sense for Karna to have that delusion. He has already told Krishna, I know I'm going to die. He's already told Bhishmacharya, I know I'm going to die. He's told Kunti, I know I'm going to die. And that Arjuna will be victorious. And yet, right now, in the battlefield, he thinks he has a chance. And so logically, of course, it doesn't make sense. But delusion is exactly that, right? Delusion is you can't think logically. And so delusion working on Karna can only be because of his attachment. Which is so sad. Okay, so then Arjuna defeats Duryodhana. At that point, Satyaki has come close to him. nice conversation happens between Arjuna and Satyaki. Satyaki is disciple, Arjuna is guru. He says, I told you not to leave Yudhishthira. And so there's profuse apologizing from Satyaki, please, please, please don't be angry with me. Yudhishthira said this, Yudhishthira said that, I couldn't bear it. I know you, my guru, I know I should have listened to you, but please don't be angry with me. And it's just so cute. And then this affection that they literally stop fighting. Arjuna goes and hugs him. He goes back to his chariot. This affection you see a lot with the Pandavas in the book. I don't know if Vedavyasa didn't write it about the Kauravas, but you don't see it as much in the Kauravas. Even with Karna and Dushashan and Duryodhana, who were very close, yet you see it quite a bit with the Pandavas. And so then there's this another huge battle between, actually in Arjuna and Satyaki's battle, there was a little bit more, but I can't remember now what the details were. So Satyaki's father had what do you call it? Arch rival? What? Arch nemesis, yeah, basically. And so they couldn't resolve it, and both their fathers had died, and so it was passed on to the sons. And so Satyaki had to face who? Burvasaha. Burivas. Boris Vasa. Rava, Boris Rava. Sorry, Boris Rava. Can't read my own writing. Told you, these names don't roll off the tongue. Boris Rava. Okay, so Boris Rava's father and Satyaki's father had this huge fight over a Swayambar. So they were fighting over a princess, a romance, so all very, very long story, lots of emotions. And basically now Satyaki had to take revenge for his father and kill Boris Rava. So Satyaki and Boris Rava in this very intense fight, and Arjuna intervenes and fights Boris Rava when Satyaki's bow had fallen. And so now Boris Rava has this whole big dialogue on, this is against the rules of dharma. And so this is where it all starts. There were so many rules. This is true. When two people are fighting, the rule was the third person couldn't come. But just prior to this, when Arjuna was fighting Duryodhana, Ashwatthama came. So remember I told you, he just noted it. Ashwatthama is Dronacharya's son. That's his guru's son. So it's not like he wouldn't know the rules. And so Arjuna simply replies, nobody else I love will die on my watch. And again, there's this incredible affection to Satyaki. It was like, I couldn't protect Abhimanyu. You're not touching a hair on Satyaki's head while I'm watching. He didn't go into the whole debate about dharma, but then Krishna does. And so this is also an interesting thing that happens from today onwards. Today meaning day 14 of the war. The Pandavas have seen the Kauravas break the rules. Yeah. And they horrified and they angry and they grieved, and there's the incredible sense of how could you, and there's a sense of injustice. Kauravas have broken the rules already from yesterday. Okay? They've broken it again today, quite a few times. Yet, the one time the Pandava breaks a rule, there's this whole big discussion on how dare you break the rules. Like, how come they can't remember it when they're breaking the rules? And how come they don't notice that they're breaking the rules? They'll notice it when the Pandavas are doing it, and they haven't even noticed it when they're doing it. This is another really, really interesting thing about dharma. Right? Ability to see clearly. I've done wrong, consequence. I've done maybe not wrong, maybe ignorantly, consequence. I've done unintentionally, consequence. Yeah, they can't even see their actions. There's zero ownership of their actions, but whether you own the action or not, the consequence will come. Like literally an hour ago, Ashwatthama broke that same rule against Krishna when he was fighting Duryodhana. So now Krishna is like, well, now it's war. This is where that there's no rules in love and war comes from. Actually, there were plenty rules, but now there's no more rules. And so, long story short, Satyaki wins. Yay! With Arjuna's help. And then now there's 2 hours to go. The sun is going to set in 2 hours. I promised you, I will tell you. Where's Jayadratha? Behind the invisible cloak. We know where he is, though. We've gone through the 2 vyuhas. We're already at the 3rd vyuha. 3rd vyuha is already pretty much broken into. All 3 of them, Bhim, Satyaki, and Arjuna, are already in the 3rd vyuha, right? They're already inside. So the 3rd vyuha is broken. But this last line of defense is not broken, and that invisibility veil is not broken. Now there was this one humongous battle that's going on between some other person called, so many kings with so many names. I can't read my writing without my glasses. So there were lots of kings now fighting Arjuna, all simultaneously. Arjuna is doing a really good job of fighting. But now Satyaki is there and Bhim's there. And again, Bhim comes and Arjuna jumps up, give Bhim a hug. If you are here, Bhim, I'll definitely win. And it's like so much like, it's like he was doing just fine, huh? Arjuna was doing just fine. But when Bhim comes, what does he say? Now that you here, Bhim, all's good. It's like there's so much affection between the brothers. It's so nice. So now they're fighting, and a whole hour has gone in this battle. And Krishna looks up, and the sun's going to set in half an hour. Right? So there were 2 hours, then that whole Satyaki battle happened, and there was 1 hour, then some other battles have happened. And Krishna has looked up, and the things, okay, enough's enough. Puts his hand up. And the Sudarshan Chakra is summoned. He doesn't even use mantra. Maybe he used it in his mind. They don't say anything. In the book, it says he just stretched his hand out, right hand out with finger up. Sudarshan Chakra comes into his hand. He throws it and then catches it. It's the way when you read it, it sounds like, you know how in computer games when you're doing that, what's that, Wii? Is it Wii? Where you're like, and then everything is happening. This is all Krishna does, huh? What actually happens? The Sudarshan Chakra flies, grows big, covers the sun, and is held in place in front of the sun. And so it's like an eclipse. The whole world falls down. Everyone's confused for a moment, but it's done. So the Kauravas start cheering that it's done. Arjuna has to enter into the fire. The day's over. Arjuna's confused. And then he's about to ask, and Krishna says, don't worry, aim your arrow at that corner. South, he gives northeast direction. South, actually, because death, south. And then he even says which arrow. Now in the commentary I read today, it didn't say the Pashupati Astra, but the other commentaries had said specifically the Pashupati Astra. This one says the Brahmastra. So I'm not sure if the Pashupati is going to be used elsewhere and if this one isn't correct or I don't know which one's correct. But he points the arrow to the direction where Krishna says. And then Krishna says, Jayadratha's father, whose name is Ridakshatra, is sitting by the Sampantang Panchaka lake, meditating. And he is meditating on Jayadratha's welfare. So when you shoot, sever his head off the body and direct the arrow to the lake and let the head fall on his father's lap. So it doesn't touch the ground. The boon was, whoever's the cause of my son's head touching the ground. You have to be very specific when you're asking for things from the Lord. Very, very specific. Because even Arjuna's vow is, if Yudhishthira's blood touches the ground, he'll kill the person. And so there's been times when Yudhishthira has bled, but they've held the blood and they've not let it touch the ground, because otherwise that person has to die, as per Arjuna's vow. So very, very specific. It reminds me of law. When law, when the word and the way they word it, and then it has to, you have to go by exacta. So these boons and these vows seem to follow the rules of like our legal system. Whereas dharma follows the spirit of what's right. Yeah. Those are, and they're two very different things, right? Like vows and boons is not dharma. It's very, very specific. So Arjuna listens. And this is where you see this incredible trust that Arjuna has. If Krishna says face this way, he faced that way. Take out this arrow. He took out the arrow that Krishna said. In this commentary, it's the Brahmastra. It's shoot it in this direction for this many miles. Let it land at this spot. How Krishna even knew the measurement and everything is, well, he's Krishna. But still, wow, right? Like so much unnecessary details. How many of us can keep stored in our head? But of course, this is a very necessary detail. Then, so remember I told you Krishna did, yeah, that's all he does. What does that do? Yeah, gone. The Sudarshan Chakra moves and it's gone. Like it's not that it returns to his finger. He does this and the Sudarshan Chakra is gone. So, have it. Cool is it to be Krishna? Like the moon and the sun and everything. Just with his one. Leela. It's like chaos theory, right? Like the smallest movement causing such a big effect. So many beautiful parallels you see in the Mahabharata. Krishna's one smile, Krishna's one flick, Krishna's one blinking of his eyes, and then repercussions. So the sun, so the Sudarshan Chakra is moved, and what do they see? The sun is sitting on the horizon. So the full ball of the sun is still there. It hasn't set. The rules of warfare is, until the sun sets, you can fight. While it was dark, very important, while it was dark, Jayadratha comes out from the invisible cloak. He comes out. How Krishna knew exactly where he was. When he stepped out of that invisible cloak, he was exactly where Krishna told Arjuna to point the arrow. The moment Jayadratha steps out, Krishna says, shoot. Arjuna shoots. Arjuna never misses his mark. The arrow takes the head, just the head, the body falls there. And the head falls on Jayadratha's father's lap while he is meditating. Jayadratha's father is startled by something falling into his lap, stands. The head rolls onto the floor and they both simultaneously explode. Krishna puts down everything, jumps onto the vain chariot where Arjuna is, and hugs him. And says, "You did it, Arjuna." How much Krishna does. And what did he say? And so, like, such a genuine hug to Arjuna, like, you did, Arjuna. There's this incredible relief, but there's also this incredible love and this incredible sense of, like, he did, it was completely sincere. You did it, Arjuna. We succeeded. It wasn't even we succeeded, it was you succeeded, Arjuna. And at this point, Arjuna bows down. Arjuna had his head on right. And says, only because of you. Krishna's love that he jumps to hug Arjuna and praise him. Arjuna's love that he knows, right? This is dharma. Should I do this? Should I do this? I don't know, but this is dharma. Recognize how much Krishna does. I succeed because of you. Really, we succeed because of him. And so they go back to the camp. And Arjuna jumps off his chariot, runs and bows down to Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira is weeping. He was so scared he was going to lose another loved one, and so grateful that he didn't. And so, of course, hugs Arjuna and he doesn't say much actually to Arjuna. Then Krishna comes, and Yudhishthira's king. He's a chariot driver, so he follows the rules. He bows down to Yudhishthira. Krishna is bowing down to Yudhishthira, and so we sing this all day long. Yudhishthira bowing down to Krishna, and Krishna bowing down to Yudhishthira. Because as chariot driver, he has to bow down to the king. He really plays his role. Even though Yudhishthira has given him the seat next to him, even though Yudhishthira tells him that without you we are nothing, Krishna does what a chariot driver is supposed to do. And then Yudhishthira says, no, this is only because of you. Arjuna is alive because of you. I will become king only because of you. This war is being fought the way it should be fought because of you. And Yudhishthira is praising Krishna. He didn't praise Arjuna so much. Of course, he loves Arjuna and he's fond of Arjuna and he was so happy to see Arjuna. But praise is for Krishna. And then Krishna says a very interesting thing. Krishna said, today, Arjuna's glory wasn't because of me. Because really, today, Arjuna has fought like no other day. And every single soldier on the Kaurava said that today, what has possessed Arjuna is Abhimanyu. It is the love for Abhimanyu that made Arjuna a force to reckon with. But Krishna doesn't even say that. The soldiers in the battlefield said that. Krishna says, today Arjuna's glory was the anger that shone in your eyes, Yudhishthira. Righteous anger in a pure heart is a fire that destroys evil. Today, whatever victory we had is because you finally were angry. Imagine, huh? Day 14. And we know this. We know Yudhishthira didn't get angry. He got sad. He got really, really sad. But Yudhishthira gave and forgave. He tolerated. He endured. But when he saw Abhimanyu being killed so unjustly, anger shone in Yudhishthira's eyes. Arjuna was already angry, long ago, controlled. Arjuna's anger was controlled. And what controls Arjuna? Yudhishthira. Not Krishna, Yudhishthira. Arjuna follows his lead from Yudhishthira. And so Krishna says, it's you who wanted Yudhishthira. Not that Krishna can't take praise, he can. But so beautifully he recognizes how dharma works. Being wanting vengeance is not that. Arjuna getting angry also, or getting vain, not that. Yudhishthira's intolerance of injustice, dharma. It has to be Yudhishthira. That heart that is so pure, when it will not tolerate anymore, after it's tolerated so much. You know, when people say, how much can I tolerate? They need to read Mahabharata and see how much Yudhishthira tolerated. Then Duryodhana is a mess. He is weeping that Jayadratha has died. Why? Because he was fond of Jayadratha? I don't think so. It was the reality of the inevitable. He was starting to see clearly. Krishna is supreme. Arjuna cannot be destroyed. Being will fulfill his vows. He's crying and crying and crying and crying. And to appease him, Drona says, fine. Because again, insults to Drona. I will not stop fighting until you are satisfied. So this is the first day. They fight at night. Drona actually goes back out to fight. Everyone is so tired. After I think about 2 or 3 hours of fighting, Yudhishthira said, we just can't do this. Stop. But Drona is also interesting that he does that because, you know, earlier in the day, he tells Duryodhana, you fight. And, you know, but also here, I forgot to mention in that whole conversation, Ashwatthama comes, Ashwatthama is Drona's son, and he tells Duryodhana, why do you keep complaining? Yeah, it's funny. Then he says that because you're all fond of the Pandavas. And Ashwatthama says something really interesting. Yes, we are. And we're also fond of you. We grew up with the Pandavas and we grew up with you. How can you not see that we're fond of you? How come you can't see that? How come you can only see that we're fond of the Pandavas? And how can you not see we're fighting on your side of the war? How can you not see how much all of us are doing? Like all of them. Nobody was taking it lightly. It's a war. And we see this happening, right? You see this with sibling rivalry so much. A kid will say, my parents love sibling more than me. And they just can't see how much the parents are doing for them. Or they can't see the merit of the sibling. It happens all the time, huh? Or even in a husband-wife. Sometimes husband will say, sometimes wife will say, you never do for me, you do for everyone else. And they just can't see. And there's complete blinding. Duryodhana really, he kept saying, you're like the Pandavas, you're like the Pandavas. But so many people fighting for him, so many people doing so many things for him. Bhishmacharya is lying on a bed of arrows because of him, for him. 30 of his brothers went to go fight today to save Karna, for Duryodhana got killed. They went on his command to their deaths. Can't he see people loved him? It's interesting how our mind does this. It doesn't matter how evident it is. If we have chosen not to see it, we won't see it. And what's worse is, if Duryodhana got what he wanted, and let's say all the 5 Pandavas were killed, he still won't be happy. Why? Because he just can't see that people are fond of him. So even when he gets what he wants, because he's so blind to what he needs to see, he can't be happy. And so when in the Gita it is said that we cause our own suffering, this is what it means. This refusing to see causes Duryodhana so much suffering. And because he's a king, it causes so many people so much suffering. But our suffering can't be blamed on anyone else. It's us. Right? Like Karna can't blame Duryodhana for his suffering. Karna chooses to follow Duryodhana. The brothers chose to follow Duryodhana. And so this moha, where we refuse to see. And many times people will tell us. So like if we go back to sibling rivalry, and I'll say, my parents love my brother more than me. And somebody will say, what are you talking about? They do so much for you. They praise you all the time. And I'll say, no, they don't. So even when I'm told, I'm not seeing. So when we talk about this blindness, the idea is we're being told. I can't see for myself. Other people are seeing it and they're telling me, listen. Try and see what they're showing you. We don't even try and see it. I'll see it with teenagers all the time, adults as well, but more often with teenagers. They'll have low self-esteem. And I'll say, but you're so good at whatever. Making friends. No, I'm not. Try and see it. Try and see that you're good at making friends. No, I won't even try to see it. But somebody's telling you, they're showing it to you. Try and see it. That's exactly what scriptures are trying to do. They're telling us so that we can try and see it, because scriptures know we are not seeing. You are Brahman. No, I'm not. You are. Try and see. You are Brahman. Okay, you're not Brahman. At least don't have bad self-esteem. Let's try and at least see some good things about ourselves to start with. Let's try and not be jealous of things we don't need to be jealous about, because we also have. This is the thing Duryodhana had. It's not like he didn't have, but he kept feeling he didn't have. Now, if you have and you feel you don't have, what can anyone do? This is all of us, huh? We have, and we keep feeling, I don't have. In that tone only. I don't have. But we have so much. When it hit Duryodhana, when it hit everybody, you have so much. What is this crying and weeping? I don't have. And look how much Krishna is doing. So Duryodhana is crying there. Sanjaya is telling everything to Dhritarashtra in the court, and Dhritarashtra also starts crying. And then Dhritarashtra starts grieving, my poor sons who died, 30 of them died. And Sanjaya says, you should have stopped the game of dice. And if you feel bad, give Yudhishthira the kingdom now. Day 14. Don't let all your other sons die. 50 of them are still alive at this point. Give Yudhishthira kingdom. What did Dhritarashtra say? No. Delusion. Such a strong hold it has on us. When we listen to these stories, it's so that we can see that we are as deluded. It's not for us to shake our head at the Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. It's for me to see, I am not willing to see. Surrender at Krishna's feet. He's doing so much for us. And let him show me what I need to see. When we bow down to Krishna, open your eyes. This eye, third eye. And look at what he's showing. He shows himself. That's what he's showing. He's showing himself. The more we see it, the more we'll see how many arrows he's taking for us. How many knocks and blows he's taking for us. How many times he's dodging the problem because we couldn't cope with it. How many times he's giving the direction, positioning us, encouraging us. We just shoot and then we get all the praise. He only praises us. After doing all the work, we do the icing on the top and he tells us, you did so well. We'll pause here for today. Day 14 is finally over. They fought in the night, but they had to pack up. They were too tired. They couldn't recognize who they were shooting anymore. They started shooting their own people. They were so tired. You have to imagine how tired they were, especially Kaurava side. Pandava side weren't doing much, right? They were chilling because Arjuna was there doing everything. Kaurava side were exhausted. All of them were fighting Arjuna and Krishna, and they did it. Arjuna and Krishna put up quite a good, what's it, not show, put up fight. But then they dissolved. I think something like 10 o'clock, they had to all go back. So now day 15. Day 15 is another Saturday. Warning. Today is Ram Navami. I had actually intended of talking on Ramji. I can still talk on Ramji? Yeah. No, cannot. Time is up. Right. Righteousness. As much as Krishna did, Ramji did. And at the end of it all, poor Ramji got only galis. How much Ramji suffered. Exiled. Actually, they had fun in the forest, but still. Sita was kidnapped. Full war. Did everything right. Our delusion that we don't see it, we don't see beauty. If we have grace, we'll see the beauty. We'll hold on to the beauty. Anyways, we'll pause. Any question? No. Everyone's satisfied with what happened to the head. No cliffhanger today. Happy?
There's a dialogue between Ori, Rama, and Satyaki, and about Dharma. And you said that Krishna, Arjuna and Mahabharata are talking. Does Krishna say anything about the rules being broken?
Yeah, Krishna was the one that said once the rules are broken, they no longer adhere to either side. You can't have one side following the rules when the other side's not. So that's why Abhimanyu's death was the death of Dharma, because it broke all the rules and now no rules will be followed. And so from today onwards, you see, Krishna doesn't play by the rules. Krishna plays by his rules. So even the throwing of the Sudarshan Chakra is trickery, although lots of the armor is trickery. So that one doesn't consider as trickery. So they had lots of, I don't think I mentioned this one. I think I did. So one of the arrows is an arrow that makes everyone sleep. I didn't mention this? No? So it happened on day 14 also. I told you lots of things happened on day 14. So they tried to capture Yudhishthira. So some of the Kaurava army went outside and they were trying to capture Yudhishthira. And so Drona's chariot was broken 5 times on day 14. That many battles he took and that many people beat him. And actually on day 15, Yudhishthira beats Drona, which is an awesome day. So Drona shoots this arrow that makes everybody sleep. So they literally were walking over sleeping bodies to pick up Yudhishthira to take him because the aim was to capture Yudhishthira. When Satyaki knows the counter, like I don't know how he knew the counter if he had already fallen asleep. Or maybe when you know the counter, you don't fall asleep. But Satyaki was awake and Satyaki wakes everybody up with the counter arrow. So what was I saying? Trickery was already a part of the warfare. Like to make everybody sleep, one arrow to make everyone sleep. And then when Alambala, the Asura, was fighting earlier, which was, I think, what's it, day 11 or something, even before Abhimanyu dies, right? Alambala was fighting. He creates dark, and he creates illusion. So you feel you like, so if you feel like you're in a fire when there's no fire, you feel you like swimming in the ocean when there's no water. Asuric arrows do all of that. That's why I said this is all these ideas for all these fantasy movies and all these power movies, like the more you read the Mahabharata, it's like, oh, that's this movie. And I'm like, no, but they got it from Mahabharata. Mahabharata was like 10,000 years ago. This movie only came out last year.
But that is part of the warfare, those arrows.
Yeah, because they belong to the Devatas. Those arrows belong to the Devatas, and so they had siddhis. It's called a siddhi. So you're using a siddhi to fight, which was legit. Yeah, you're using an astra. Whatever skill you have, you're allowed to use. And asuras had skills to create illusions, which is today, right? Today we go. So today a great example of asuras would be the casinos. You walk into this world where it's a different, all illusion. Like you can be rich overnight, you can this happen, or just do this, even all those shows they put up, all of it. It's such a, like when you look at Vegas, it's all just illusion. People walking in and out of illusions. You're in a pyramid in one place, you're in this Egypt in another place, you're in illusion. None of it's real. Yeah. Of course, the way it's written in the Mahabharata is more like, whereas Vegas was built by hard labor, sweat, and thirst. But it's still like, that's the kind of, it's everything still existing today in maybe a grosser form.
So then said where, so then that would be karmic if somebody breaks the rules and then you break them as well. So the saying of everything is fair in love.
Everything is fair in love and war. So it was the middle of a war, and so it applied there. Today, let's say somebody else breaks the tax rule. Doesn't mean all of us can break the tax rule, because it's not war and it's not life and death. Or let's say you have a fight with your sibling and your sibling lies. Doesn't mean you can now lie. It really depends what's at stake. And like if you're fighting for a slice of pizza, really not worth it. Siblings will fight over these kind of things only, right? But you have to remember, this was life and death. This was kingdom. And in the kingdom would be lost and karma would be lost. So no, it doesn't always apply. But if the rule is broken, the rules don't apply. It applied in the war. It doesn't apply for us because we're not in the state of war. What's at stake? Will we lose dharma altogether by breaking the rules? Then don't break them.
Why Yudhishthira in the first place accepted that or tolerated that injustice when they were playing the two times?
Why did Yudhishthira tolerate the injustice of the game of dice? He was trying to avoid the war. He didn't avoid the war. But that's easy for you and I to say so many years after, sitting comfortably. When you don't know what the future holds and you know there could be a war, he was trying to avoid the war. And each day of the war, when you're here, was worth trying to avoid.
I mean, was it not very late when he got angry?
Day 14 of the war is very late for him to get angry. Yes. Because his heart is so pure.
But if he was angry at the first place, then...
Yeah, that's what I said at the beginning of today's class. If he had got angry at the first place when Draupadi was touched, the minute they touched Draupadi, he should have gotten angry and they killed him all on that spot. There'd be no war.
Because he has the type of power, right?
He did have the power. Bhima and Arjuna could have shot them dead on that spot.
So was he the responsible person to be in the war?
Interesting that you asked, is Yudhishthira responsible for the war? No, one person cannot be responsible for a war. So many people had to have agreed for this war to have happened. He's an instrument. He's an instrument, but he suffers. In fact, just today, somebody made me hear a clip. For allowing Draupadi to be insulted, Yudhishthira really suffers. So every single day in exile, he suffered. Although some days were good because he was in satsang. No, it's true. He had some awesome satsang during that time. The pain he feels when Abhimanyu was killed. Day 15 of the war, Ghathakoch gets killed. The equal amount of pain as Abhimanyu being killed. The pain he'll feel when his 5 sons are murdered. All of that is consequences of allowing Draupadi to be insulted. Allowing Duryodhana to manipulate. Allowing Dhritarashtra to intimidate. He suffers. And Yudhishthira's heart is soft. You know, sometimes when people are a bit thick-skinned, if they get insulted, sure, they feel bad. But then after a while, when somebody's heart is really pricks. Really, really pricks. Seeing Bhishmacharya fall only hurt him so much. How do you measure that pain that a person feels of having to go through all of this? But the difference is, Pandavas make no excuse. When pain comes, they endure it. And they move on. We don't know. We don't know what's going to bring us pain. Pain will come one way or the other. Endure. Krishna is anyways taking so many arrows for us, taking so many blows for us, anyways saving us from so much suffering. Whatever suffering we have to face, anyways, he's buffered so much for us.
But it's like Yudhishthira is depicted as a Dharma.
He's not depicted as Dharma. He is Dharma.
So if Dharma is tolerating so much, then he is bound to suffer.
How can Dharma not tolerate?
I mean, why to tolerate?
Then it's not Dharma. Dharma is that which tolerates. Tell me something. You a mother, you've been pregnant. Why you tolerated that kid kicking you? You tolerated the kid giving you gas, back pain.
But we knew what
shaping your body. You could have been like Priyanka Chopra. No, my body needs to stay thin and beautiful and curvy the way it is. I'm not having kids. But you tolerated. Then that kid came out. You tolerated them puking on you. That changing diapers. Did you not tolerate? Today he or she will turn around and say, you're the worst mommy in the world. I bet you one day they will, because they all do. You tolerate? Tolerating is dharma.
Because that is our duty.
Tolerating is duty. Yeah. Just because they fully grown doesn't mean they fully matured. Duryodhana's mind is so fickle. Tolerating is dharma. If none of us tolerated, what kind of world this would be? Already our tolerance has gone so low, and look at what's happened. Families have shrunk, people are lonely, can't keep jobs. All this is intolerance. Tolerating is dharma. Why did Yudhishthira tolerate? Because he's dharmic. How quickly we forget. Krishna's taking half of it for us. How quickly we forget that. He's standing in front. Before we get it, he gets it. If he can tolerate, what are we complaining about? Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit kapad bhavet, asato ma satkamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Guru Harihi Om.